So you probably all have heard about the story of Microsoft when they changed CEOs back in 2014, and suddenly the company changed completely on their approach on how it was growing, were the things that it was focusing on. Nowadays, Microsoft has become a very successful and modern company. But how did they come from a company that was struggling to cope with modernizing itself to something that now is being able to catch up and actually start competing and being one of the big guys again in tech, and a very relevant big guy, not like an old school like it was back in the early 2000s? So the answer: business agility. So what is business agility? According to the Agile Alliance, the definition is: business agility is the ability of an organization to sense changes internally or externally and respond accordingly in order to deliver value to its customers. Agile, on the other hand, is a mindset or a toolkit that will help you to enable business agility. So business agility, what it talks about is how modern organizations can actually focus more on actually delivering value continuously to their customers on a very changing environment that it's actually difficult sometimes to cope with. Agile has been typically used by software companies, especially by the engineering teams, to actually be able to deliver a continuously changing product to their customers. So making sure that we are able to build the best solution to our customers. And this means that we have to be able to react to the customer needs, to be able to actually demonstrate that we can be flexible in the way that we approach our projects, that we might have an idea of what we want to achieve, but we need the involvement and engagement with the customers to actually achieve this goal. But typically, Agile has been restricted to the more engineering teams and not so much to other teams in the company. What has happened typically is that other teams in the company has gotten really good at selling the first versions of that product. They have been able to understand what the customers are, what the customers' initial needs are, how to promote this product to those customers. But when the environment and the products are changing constantly, and when new business models are actually coming up relatively often, companies had to actually learn to also change the ways of working. So it doesn't mean that we had to change necessarily the product, which probably is anyways changing, but it's also the way that we are actually potentially selling our product, or the way that we are promoting our product, or the way that we are supporting our product. A good example of business agility, you can see it when you see companies adopting chatbots in many places, that you can see that you have an automated way of actually being able to answer some of the initial questions that you are going to have towards that company. But also when you think about the promotion and the marketing, where companies are actually engaging nowadays with different types of influencers, think about Instagram or YouTubers even, and actually sending their products to these people to be reviewed, because they have a very good organic way to reach out to many people and many potential users for the products. So business agility is very important for organizations where there is uncertainty of where are we going to be in the future and how to face the changes that we see all the time in the industry that we are selling our products. This is very applicable to tech companies, where you can see that both the products are changing, but also the users are changing all the time. They want to have different experiences. They want to have a better experience. They want to be more involved, more engaged even with the company. So there is clear changes all the time on the way that people are behaving and the needs that the business has to address in order to cope with the demand for those users. And how is actually this done? Well, in the end, you as a company or as a product had to face the reality that the world has moved from a very static way of doing things and repetitive way of doing things to a very adaptive way of doing things. This means that you had to be able to learn continuously all the time and adapt the ways that you are working. And for this, I actually like very much the model that the heart of Agile is using. I will link here a video that I have created about the heart of Agile and defining what the heart of Agile is. But in a nutshell, what the heart of Agile proposes is that you had to collaborate constantly. You had to deliver solutions to your customers all the time, that you had to reflect on those solutions or products that you are delivering to your customers and get feedback, understand how users are using them and what are the new demands that the users find on those products. And then learn and improve, change the ways that you are working, change the product to adapt to the new situations. And then you are back to collaborate and bring those new solutions into place. In the end, you want to be very customer-centric, bring solutions to your customers and being able to adapt all the time to the needs of the customers. And also this applies internally on how do you build your operations, how do you drive your operations to be successful in order to answer those customer needs. This applies typically more to tech companies, but it applies also to traditional companies where you can see companies changing the way that they are offering experiences and trying to make it more about the person and about the customer, that the customer feels more engaged, more involved in the products or the services that they are trying to enjoy. Another good example of business agility is Tesla compared to traditional car manufacturers. I know that I've been talking quite a bit about Tesla in previous videos, but the reality is that Tesla has a good mindset to actually be an agile business. Tesla, for starters, tries to improve their products constantly. They don't wait for a new release of the product to actually improve it. They don't wait for the new version of the car to actually improve the internals of the car. You can get software updates relatively often that will change the way that your car behaves, and you can change the driver experience for the drivers relatively often. This means that you are actually engaging your users, that you are actually taking into account their feedback, and that you're actually trying to build new solutions and modifying and adapting your platform constantly. This also reflects in the way that they manufacture within the factory, where they don't see that a manufacturing line is something that is going to be the same for years, but where they actually are trying to change the ways of working by bringing new techniques, by bringing new workflows within the actual manufacturing line. And when you compare these to traditional car companies, what they have typically done is that they just have one version of the car like every several years. They don't typically necessarily change very often their manufacturing line, or they might be doing some small tweaks here and there, but they don't necessarily rethink the whole way of manufacturing relatively often as Tesla might be doing compared to them. Here Tesla is basically showing that they have a much better business agility than these other companies, where they are ready to change the way that they are working, that they are ready to change and adapt to the demands of a very fast and constantly moving needs of their customers. It also changes in the way that they are actually offering services. And nowadays, even Tesla is actually talking about having subscription models where you can subscribe to full self-driving or different services from Tesla as a user, as a driver, that you don't have to have them purchased all the time. This is a completely different approach from what the traditional automakers have been doing. This shows that Tesla has been looking into how to change the way of driving the business, and that they take this into account pretty much constantly, that they are wanting to be adapting to the different situation and the environment that is changing, and actually just looking at what has been done in other industries in the past. Just think what Apple has been doing in the past, or even Microsoft has been doing, and how they have been adapting the ways of working and the business that they are driving, and how their business models have been changing radically from what they used to be. Basically, this is what Tesla is doing now in the automotive industry. So what is the benefit of business agility compared to normal businesses or more traditional businesses? Well, if you think about these examples I put earlier, basically it puts them in a very strong position to actually advance faster and adapt faster to the needs, and be considered and perceived from the outside, from the users, from the potential customers, as actually a modern company, and making people much more engaged with what they are building, where other companies start to be perceived as more like laggards company. And that is a problem when you start to be perceived like that it puts you in a very difficult position as a company where you are not maybe having that competitive advantage anymore. This is not the end of the world. Just look at Microsoft. For some time, it was not having the best publicity. People didn't like it as a company. They didn't like the products. Everybody was kind of forced to use them because they were so big and still growing. But it was not perceived as it was just perceived as an old dinosaur. But even a company that was perceived as an old dinosaur was able to twist and change and basically do a 180 degrees turn and refocus the way that they were working, and suddenly start to be a much more agile company that could answer to the needs. And yes, you can still argue that some of their products might not be the best ones, some of their products might not be the most appealing, but you can actually see that they have clearly changed the ways of working, where they want to be perceived and work as a modern company, and actually being able to be agile in the way that they are running their business. So how about you? Where do you think that your company is? Are you a company that is actually have a very established ways of working, that has a very established business model, that you are sure that this is what it works, that you don't have to change it? Or do you think that your business models are always something that needs to be developed? That is something that actually has to evolve, because life evolves, people evolve, technology evolves, our society changes all the time. So how can you make sure that you are coping with it? Please comment below and let me know. I will see you next week with a new video, and as always, stay safe.